Trading this Leafs defenseman would be a massive mistake, but who would they get in return? We'll talk about that later in this video, but first we just want to say that 91% of you guys aren't subscribed, so if you're looking for a home to daily NHL and daily Leafs content, look no further and go down below and hit that subscribe button. But with that out of the way, let's get right into the first topic of the video, which is TJ Brodie on the move? And in a recent article, they say here that I'd argue that the Leafs need more Brodie, not less. In fact, Brodie's defensive prowess sets him apart as one of the top defenders for Toronto. And we also want to take a look at his stats here. Obviously, Brodie isn't known for his offense. More of a defensive defenseman with 100% defensive WAR, and obviously he's 98% on penalties, doesn't take very many, and he's 94% on the penalty kill. A great defensive defenseman for the Leafs on the back end. And they also go on to say here in this article, Treliving prefers his blue lines big and bullish. Yet Brodie is the best pure defender on Toronto's back end. He's got a lot of what teams want, maybe just not what Treliving wants. But, Mark, I have to disagree with this here. I think that TJ Brodie is probably the best defensive defenseman Toronto has had in a while, and I think that you want him to stick around.
He's a big reason the Leafs have had so many wins over the past couple seasons. Obviously, he's not going to come out and score your 40, 50, 60 points, but just his impact on the defensive end is just such a key piece for Toronto. We've seen over multiple seasons, he's been our most sturdy defensive defenseman. He locks everyone down. He's the best at breaking out of our zone. He's the best penalty killer on defense we have. And just overall, I think if the Leafs were thinking about moving him or did end up moving him, it would be a massive mistake. Brodie is going into the last year of his deal, but it's a situation where you can work this out, and it's the type of guy where you need this guy to win a cup. You can't just replace Brodie with another big, bullish kind of defenseman and just expect someone else to step up in this way that Brodie has. He's almost not replaceable on the Leafs blue line, in my opinion, in a sense that we have a lot of defense and we have a lot of guys who are capable of playing defense. But the problem is we just don't have the impact that this guy brings. So I think if you move him for someone else, you may get a decent return, but just this replacement you can't do.
Yeah, I have to agree with you there. Another thing to take into account here is the chemistry that he has at Morgan Rielly. And when Morgan Rielly is your top defenseman in Toronto, when you have a guy with Brodie paired to him that's more of a defensive style defenseman, they have this chemistry. You don't really want to break that up. And I don't really agree with this article saying that Treliving maybe might move him, because I think Treliving, for what he's did this offseason, has brought in these gritty type players that use their body and use their stick well. I think this is just what TJ Brodie does with his game, so I can't see Treliving moving him at all.
Yeah, we kind of seen a couple seasons ago, there was a rumor going around that Kadri to Calgary was a trade that was going to happen, and Treliving was willing to move Brodie, but Kadri did not want to go there. So we've seen him move him before, but it's a situation that, like I've said, this impact that he brings on the defensive end for the Leafs, it's just something that we need. He's just such a big piece of this team. If he's a top defenseman, if he plays on your second line, it's just a guy that I think would hurt in the end if we lose him.
Yeah, definitely. And like you said here, when Treliving's had him before in Calgary, he knows his game, and I think he knows that he can fit this system really well. And I think, like you said, Toronto needs a defensive defenseman to win a cup, because at the end of the day, defense does win championships. And I think the defensive depth that the addition of Klingberg and McCabe and those guys that they have there, and the people that Treliving has brought in to help on the defensive end, I think it's only going to further the Leafs' chances at making it to the cup this year, make it to the cup final, and maybe winning a cup this year. But we're going to get into the next topic, which is who would they possibly get back in return for Brodie? And in this article, they say that they could probably get, with a trade to Brodie back to Calgary, they could probably get someone like Hanifin, Zadorov, Chris Tanev could be a realistic option. But just looking at the list of these guys, despite Hanifin, I think you could get Zadorov or Tanev for a different player. I think you could keep Brodie here and get one of these guys.
I'll touch on this briefly. My realistic option would be obviously to keep Brodie. But if you could get a world where you keep Brodie, you maybe run him on your lefty. He's a left-handed defenseman that does play right, so he can play both sides. But if you could run the right side of Riley, Brodie, McCabe, I think that's an incredible right side, left side. Now, if you can pick up a guy like Zadorov, maybe for Timmins, a prospect, maybe a couple picks, at half retained, I think he's at about 1.8 million. So you don't need to move up too much cap space to get him. He's a 6'6", 250-pound defenseman. He plays the right side. You could bring this type of guy in and put him on with Morgan Riley. We've seen the success Riley and Shen had last year, and Zadorov is just a bigger version of Shen, just a physical guy. He's good defensively. I think he potted something like 14 goals last year on the back end. So if you could keep him on the right side and just kind of keep Klingberg on the right and then Timothy Liljegren on your third pairing with a guy like McCabe, I think this is far and away the best defensive core in the league. I think they bring the physicality, the offense, the defense, and overall, I think Sidorov's a guy you can target. I would not like Brodie to go back in the return. I know a guy like Hannafin's a young guy. He's up and coming. He's just established, but I think you need to keep Brodie, and I think Zadorov would be the most realistic option for Toronto to grab.
Yeah, I definitely have to agree with you there, but I don't think we'll see a trade like this probably till the deadline or around the deadline. So it'll be interesting to see because I think Brodie's going to have a really good year this year. Obviously, they got him, like we've seen on his stats here, he has 100% defensive WAR. He's great on the penalty kill as well. Just a great guy, knows how to use his stick, knows how to block the shots in front of the net as well, and can also lay the body. And like you said, with a pickup with like a guy like Zadorov, you could probably get him probably for Benoit and Timmins and maybe a couple of picks or a couple of prospects to see how it works out. But I think if they're going to make a move like this, I think it will be towards more of a cup run type thing. They'll probably sell a few things to get a guy to push them, to give them that extra edge in towards the cup. But I really can't see Brodie leaving. I just think him and Riley have such great chemistry, like I mentioned earlier, that I think breaking them up would be detrimental to this team.
Ultimately, this trade would come down to how Calgary looks going to deadline. So I do think this will be a deadline move. If they're contending, there's no way they move a guy like Zadorov out unless they're getting a huge upgrade. So it's a situation where if Calgary's out of the playoff hunt, they're not in the right realm to make that final push. I think Zadorov's going to be on the market due to him being on his last year of his deal. So like I said, you can run Riley, Zadorov, you can run Brodie and Klingberg and then McCabe and Liljegren. And if you want to dress 7D, then you can bring in a guy like Gio where you can run your 7 defensemen. You let Klingberg just be your offensive guy, start in the offensive zones, get a lot of power play time. And then Giordano is your defensive guy that can start in the defensive end and still eat a lot of minutes. So you have a lot to work with. You run your 7 defensemen in the playoffs, and I think this would just benefit the Leafs so much.
Yeah, for sure. I have to agree with you there. But we're going to get into our next topic, which is everybody's favorite comment of the day. And the comment of the day today goes to Gordon. He says, McMahon is a good fit for the fourth line. Fast skater, heavy down low, drives the net, hustles back. Robertson will be the guy who emerges after a stint with the Marlies. I look for him to be a regular by Christmas. And obviously, Gordon, I have to agree with you here. I think, like I said in yesterday's video, McMahon is a great guy to add to that fourth line, to add a little bit of scoring, and I think Robertson, coming off that, coming up from the Marlies this year will be good as well. Maybe he'll get some third line minutes, maybe he'll get some fourth line minutes, but I think two of these guys you should look for this year to maybe make a run into the NHL. But if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to drop a like down below. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. We're trying to hit 1,000 subscribers before the season starts, and we'd love to see that happen. And also comment down below what you think on a TJ Brodie trade. Do you like it? Do you hate it? Let us know. But I've been KC alongside my co-host Mark Pye. Keep your stick on the ice.